Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in Colorado last month on June 5th in Morrison, Colorado at the Red Rocks Amphitheater. A dozen people had seen a giant flying saucer hovering in the sky, and when it noticed that they were looking at it, it started moving away and then just vanished. And I think it's a very interesting case, especially considering the number of people who saw it. And it was reported to the National UFO Reporting Center. And it was also in an article today by Chris Eberhardt of Fox News Digital. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. But here's the reporting from the report that was submitted to the National UFO Reporting Center. The event only lasted about 30 seconds. It was north of Red Rocks, about a mile or so, hovering above the treetops on the Hog's Back Ridge. There was a ridge there, and it was hovering above treetops nearby. And it was dark metallic. It was a large disc, several hundred feet long, according to the witness here. And anyway, it states here, we saw a large disc-shaped craft with 3 levels of windows. It hovered silently and then disappeared into thin air. I was working at Red Rocks Amphitheater last night when one of our coworkers suddenly said to us, "Hey, what is that over there? It looks like a spaceship." We all turned to look in the direction he was pointing, and sure enough, there was a UFO hovering about half a mile to a mile north of Red Rocks. A dozen of us saw it. We all kept asking each other, "Are you seeing this too?" It was a resounding yes from everyone in the group. What we saw was a classic disc-shaped metallic craft that was several hundred yards long. It had 3 levels of windows, almost like really long three-story office building. The thing was totally silent. It didn't make a sound. What's even crazier is that as soon as we all started noticing it and stopped what we were doing to pay attention to it, the craft tipped at an angle and slowly started moving belly first to the east. Then it started fading away until it was invisible. It didn't shoot off into the distance. It simply dissolved into the ether. We all watched it vanish. This was not a plane. It wasn't a satellite, a drone, or anything like that. There was no mistaking what this was. We all saw a giant disc-shaped craft hovering a few hundred feet above the ground with 3 rows of windows and lights. Then we all saw it fade into nothing as soon as it knew it was being watched. There were a dozen other people who saw it with me. So there you go. That's a very interesting story. And the fact that you had 12 witnesses that saw it only lasted 30 seconds, and we don't have any cell phone footage, unfortunately. Apparently, there was no pictures here or nothing put up. But see, that happens. I could imagine, when these things happen and it catches you off guard, you just don't expect it. Back in 1994 when, I was on a fishing trip with a friend and we encountered a UFO up close right in front of us, right there, hovering right in front of us with no sound whatsoever. Had I had a cell phone with me, I don't think I would have even thought of grabbing it. I was thinking about other things. I was thinking about getting out of there because I was afraid of that thing was going to land. That's what I was thinking was going to land. These people, obviously there was something there, something strange. 12 people saw it. It could not have been a mistake. I know debunkers will see it a different way, but it's just too bad. There is something here. There's a presence here. We have the evidence now that backs up stories like this. We know that we're not alone, and it's time for people to start facing this fact. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. There are some people out there who are having a lot of trouble facing facts. But anyway, there was also an article on Fox News Digital written by Chris Eberhardt, who, by the way, was the person who had interviewed Scott Roeder and myself about a month or so ago with regard to the Las Vegas alien case. And he talks about what these people experienced, and then he actually talks about what the Vegas story, about how he connects it with that. And I'll just read a little bit from his article. He says here, the way it appeared to simply dissolve into the ether is similar to a potential alien encounter reported last April in Las Vegas when beings seemingly vanished. Scott Roeder, a veteran crime scene reconstruction analyst, broke down the Las Vegas witnesses video and outlined 2 smoky filters that didn't match the background. He theorized that the beings used some sort of cloaking mechanism to shield themselves from the curious family and later responding police officers. So I'm just going to I'll leave the link so you can check out that entire story. He has a video of me and Scott talking. That's the first time I saw them post this video. This was when he interviewed us. There was a part that he I don't think this was published before, so that was interesting. But I'll leave the link so you can check it out. But yeah, sometimes the craft, as I've talked about in previous episodes, there's been numerous cases where people see them just dissolve. And I thought another interesting aspect was the fact that it flew away with its belly first, and that's another thing you hear about a lot with all shapes of all shapes and sizes of flying saucers. They turn on their side, and then that's how they fly away. In the Colorado case, this one turned on its side and start moving away with its belly first, and then just vanished like it wasn't there, dissolved. And I think that these beings have the ability, obviously, to cloak themselves, and this is something that we've heard it's been in the literature for decades, and they could make themselves invisible to us, and apparently that's what happened here. That craft realized probably that it was being spotted by human beings, and then just decided to hit the cloaking button, I guess. Probably. I mean, I don't know. This is pure speculation, but they vanish sometimes. I mean, there was a story that I talked about here on the show a couple months ago, where there was a guy in 1990 who came across, was walking near his house, and there was a field near the woods, and a craft just materialized right in front of him on the ground. Like he didn't see anything. All of a sudden, there was something there, just materialized out of thin air. Because these things obviously have the ability to hide themselves. And if you look at the Vegas evidence as analyzed by Scott Roeder, he said that the creature that appeared above the fence was somehow, blocking out. Preventing itself from being filmed. Basically, on that video, in that area where the creature appears above the fence, 66% of the pixels are missing for some reason. They're just not there. And it looks like when it moves into the screen, it's like there's a cloud around it. And if you look deeper into that video later on, there's a head that appears in the background near the heavy equipment after the family gets chased out of the yard, and it looks like when that head appears, it appears out of nowhere, and you can see it clearly for quite a number of frames, and then it just some sort of a cloud just covers it, and it just disappears again, and it's hard, you can't see it. You could see something there, but you can't see that face as clearly as you could a moment before. And that's, I believe, I can't prove this, but I think in that situation, and I'm showing this on the screen right now, in that situation, I think what's happening is potentially that they're using some sort of there was some cloaking technology in use at that moment to prevent themselves from being filmed, and it did a pretty good job other than the part where you could see it. Obviously there's something there, and it's not human. There was a creature there in the background, just like there were creatures in the foreground, the one that chased them out, the one that appeared above the fence, and then you see that face in the background, among other things. We think that that whole backyard may have been filled with them. It seems like there's the evidence is pointing in that direction. And obviously, I think that there was most certainly more than two. Actually, I think there was more than two, and I think they were using some sort of technology to hide themselves. I think it's pretty obvious. And I think in this case, you hear about with regard to Colorado, it seems like they have the ability to make their craft invisible. And if you think about the Vegas case again, the craft that came down, Angel Ken Moore had initially seen something coming down from the sky, but then once it hit the ground, it was blurry. He couldn't see it anymore. And then when a few seconds later, he couldn't see anything there because it was invisible. They're able to make themselves invisible somehow, apparently, and the craft that they fly, and they're able to make it invisible. And then people, debunkers particularly, wonder why the pictures are blurry sometimes. They're not all blurry, but they always say they're always blurry. They're not always blurry. Some of them are very clear, and you can see that there's a disc hovering in the sky or some sort of a craft hovering in the sky. But sometimes they are blurry, and maybe one of the reasons that they're blurry is because there's some sort of a technology on there that's making it difficult to photograph it or video it or whatever. But we just don't know. But they have this ability. I mean, the Vegas case proves that they can make themselves invisible. Now, moving on, I want to talk about something else that's come to my attention. There was a new academic paper that has been released. I'm not going to call it scientific because I don't think it deserves to be called scientific. It's more just opinion as far as I'm concerned. And it was written by some guy who's been researching UFOs since 1966 from Spain, named Vincente-Juan Ballester Olmos, along with some biologist named Luis Cayetano. And this paper, it's pure debunker nonsense. That's the whole thing. It's like 70 plus pages long, and it's absolute trash. It's designed to mislead these people. Their research was half-assed at best half-assed. They didn't consider any of the other the only data that's considered in this entire paper. This is data that aligns with their thinking when it comes to this topic, and their thinking is that there's nothing at all to UFOs whatsoever. If we had the bottom line is that if we had the right equipment, we'd have this all figured out real quick, and everyone would know that it's not extraterrestrial or NHI or anything else paranormal whatsoever. And this is absolute garbage. A good chunk of it, I'd say about 40 pages or so, is just regurgitation of the Stephen Greenstreet stuff with regard to Lou Elizondo and whether it was called OSOP or ATIP and all this kind of stuff. Basically, this paper, what it does is try to make it look like that there's the same kind of scenarios that has been pushed forward by people like Stephen Greenstreet, that somehow Congress has been tricked into believing all these things by a certain group of people like Lou Elizondo, among others. Hal Puthoff. There's a bunch of names in here, of course. All the stuff the whistleblowers are talking about, that has nothing to do, according to these people, with recovered alien craft. That's absolutely ridiculous, and then in the end, we're all going to learn that it was nothing. The proof will someday be presented to us that will show us and prove to the whole world that the United States government has never been reverse engineering or recovering crashed alien craft at all. That's all fantasy, according to these people. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll leave the link so you can check it out for yourself. I mean, I really wouldn't waste your time on it. I mean, you might, because you're going to get people who in the UFO community are going to be very angry at reading this. Because, I mean, it really puts everyone down. It makes everyone look like, it doesn't say it outright, but for the most part, you get the gist. It's trying to make everyone in the UFO community paint them as crackpots, stuff like that. And actually, they call them, they refer to people in the UFO community as gullible UFO proponents. We're all gullible. We're all stupid, according to these people. But actually, it's these people who are stupid, and they erred. They erred majorly because, again, they're ignoring the evidence that has been presented in the last few months, and they just released this paper. They might have thought twice about it had they been aware of the evidence. This paper here it's pro Arrow, pro Stephen Greenstreet, pro Mick West. Like, these are heroes in this paper. Like, these are rational, reasonable people, according to Cayetano and Ballester, Olmos, and that's who they're relying on. Everyone in the UFO community pretty much tricked the people in the government, the people in Congress, to push this legislation for UAP disclosure, UAP transparency, but they don't even think this is all necessary. And it's going to, over time, what's going to happen, according to these guys, over time, what's going to happen is everyone's going to realize that it was all nonsense, and people are going to look back at this time in history and think everyone in Congress who was looking at who was pushing for legislation like this were duped and all this kind of stuff, and everyone in the UFO community that helped prod Congress into this position are going to be revealed as just hucksters for the most part. That's the feeling you get out of this paper when you read it. So I didn't like it at all, but we're not going to go through the whole thing. You have to check it out for yourself. You've seen stuff like this. All of us have seen stuff like this before. But this is written. This took a lot of time to put together. These guys spent a lot of time. They're very desperate. They're very desperate to get their word out that there's nothing to this, and anybody who believes in this is stupid. And in the end, it's all going to be for nothing because there's nothing here. Nothing ever was here, and that's just the way it is, according to these people. But again, they haven't considered. In fact, I sent them some tweeted to these people on Twitter today, or Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. I actually wrote to them. I said, you guys made fools out of yourselves with this paper. It's already been proven that there's a presence here, and nobody in the debunker cult is capable of criticizing the evidence. Because of the existing proof, you come off as disingenuous hucksters who failed to do your homework. That's what they come off as. They come off as disingenuous hucksters. They come off as, I mean, it seems to people in the UFO community, this is extremely moronic for two people who know how to put a paper together. They're fine writers, right? They have a good grasp of how to put something together like this. Unfortunately, it's filled with lies and disinformation. And then I actually sent them a link to one of my recent videos where I sent that letter to the Pentagon. With the Pentagon, by the way, that was sent on June 11th. I've never received any response from them, and I don't think I ever will. You know why? Because what are they going to say? What are they going to tell us? It was crash test dummies, anthropomorphic puppeteer show somehow ended up in somebody's backyard. I mean, what are they going to say? What are they going to make up? Right? Balloons? I mean, they can't do that this time. That's so they're not going to say anything. Mick West can't say anything. One of the heroes of these two guys of the paper that I'm talking about, Mick West is obviously one of their heroes, right? He's one of the rational-minded people who's going to help end this nonsense that people are talking about UFOs at some point in the future. The papers and scientific analysis by people like Mick West is going to bring it all to an end, according to these two guys. But I sent them another link to that recent video where I talked about sending that letter to the Pentagon, and I wrote to them, I said, here, shove this in your pipe and smoke it. You all but guaranteed that in the end all UFOs will have rational explanations. Either you're extremely naive or you're deliberately lying. It doesn't matter because the debate is over. You missed the boat. And then I also said, here's a better paper to read. It tells a decidedly different story, and the great part about it, it discusses proof. You're on the wrong side of history, bub. Yes, they are on the wrong side. They think they're on the right. Some of these people, I don't know, these people are extremely brainwashed or something, right? Either they're extremely brainwashed and naive, right? There's not many avenues here to talk about. Either they're extremely brainwashed or naive, or they're being deliberately being deliberate about this. They're deliberately lying to people. They're deliberately putting out these false narratives, deliberately putting out false information to trick people in the public. Because there's no other choice here. You're either really stupid, right, and you're going through life with the blinders on, or you're deliberately tricking people. I mean, there's no other answer here. It's one or the other, right? It can't be. What else could it possibly be? Because I know there's something here. I encountered one of these creatures myself. Right? I've seen one of the craft on a different occasion with a witness, right? And now we have now look at the tens of thousands of reports, millions of reports over the decades, right? And they talk about that there's no way, for instance, that these crash retrievals and all that's all nonsense. It's all folklore. It's all mythology. Things like that they state. And obviously, either they haven't studied Roswell or they did study and they're just lying. So it's one or the other. I mean, I don't know how anybody who was to do the research for books by Donald Schmidt and Thomas Carey, Kevin Randall, Stanton Friedman, Richard Dolan. Do the research, look at the research that these guys put together over the decades, and you realize, you understand, there's no question that something happened in Roswell, for instance. There was just too many witnesses, too many military witnesses, too many deathbed confessions, too many signed affidavits, too many people like Jesse Marcel Sr., Jesse Marcel Jr. It's too many people. There was just too many people. Walter Haut, the press relations guy, who wrote the original press release that stated that they had recovered, the United States Army Air Forces had recovered a flying disc. He wrote the original thing, and then a few years before he died, he signed an affidavit saying that he actually not only saw the crash, but some of the crash materials, but he saw alien bodies. And there's lots of witnesses like that for Roswell. These guys dismiss all of it. All of it. They don't even consider it, any of this stuff. All this whole topic to a lot of people, and in a paper like this, they try to make the UFO community look like fools. They try to make everyone in Congress who's trying to pass legislation look like dupes. They try to drag in Lou Elizondo's name through the mud again over this OSOP, A-tip, whatever. Obviously, Lou Elizondo was doing something with UFOs when he was there, right? Obviously he was, because look, we got that 2017 story out of it. But they try to show people shiny objects to take their focus off what they really should be looking at, and that's what these guys are doing. But we're going to go through a little bit toward the end of this piece of junk. I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. Let me get to their closing, the part toward the end where they pretty much wrap everything up. because there were some things stated here where it's absolutely laughable, and these guys, they made fools of themselves. I mean, I'm waiting. Let's see one of your heroes, Mick West, disprove the Vegas alien stuff. I want to see it. Come on, I'm dying for this to happen. I'm dying for someone from the debunker cult to try to disprove this. Come on, where is it? Where is it? So I could tear it to pieces, because I know you can't. That's what it is. You can't. Some of these debunkers actually know it. I believe that Mick West looked at this and he knows it now. There's some people out there in the debunker world that know that the proof is there now, and they're not saying anything about it because they're afraid to say anything about it. And it's now again today on Fox. They're talking in that Fox News article with regard to the Colorado stuff. It's there again in the mainstream. And they hate it. They hate it. They can't stand it. They have nothing to say to it. And what are they going to say? What are they going to say? Anyway, I'm going to pull this up on the screen. We'll talk about this. It says here, this is how they wrap things up. Someday, historians of America's policymaking will inquire about why the United States government spent years and millions of dollars in the first quarter of the 21st century on a program that, largely unbeknownst to the responsible authorities within that government, was actually intended to investigate flying saucers and UFOs, then called UAP, along with their supposed paranormal correlates. The reasons for why we arrived at this point have been established and precisely summated by some smart thinkers who follow the situation. And it has a number there, 117. He's talking about that nonsensical horse dump from Stephen Greenstreet. One of his videos. That's one of the smart thinkers they're talking about, Stephen Greenstreet. He's a smart thinker, according to these guys. And their take will certainly be reflected in academic terms by future scholarship. Let me tell you something. Their take will certainly be reflected. Let me say this. Their take certainly will be reflected in academic terms by future scholarship, because people in the future are going to look back at things like what these people were saying and point out how wrong and foolish they were. How wrong and foolish they were. How disingenuous they were. That's what they're going to say. There's going to be scholars in the future that are going to look back at stuff like this, at papers like this, right? And reporting by people like Stephen Greenstreet, and they're going to say, they will be reflected, right? But they're going to be, the reflection is going to be that these people were completely wrong, and the UFO community was correct all along. It's so great being right about this. It's so great now that we have that end-all evidence, and there's nothing they could do about it. Anyway, continuing here, it says, from the second decade of the 21st century, we see members of both houses of the United States Congress increasingly losing touch with reality thanks to the exertions of UFO activists who feed the media and the legislative apparatus of the United States with unreal, out-fashioned allegations of hidden flying saucers, captured bodies, and reverse engineering. They are doing a great disservice to the UFO cause. What do you mean? Well, how could it be a disservice? How could that be a disservice when you're trying to get to the truth? You're trying to pry the truth out of this control group that obviously exists, these gatekeepers that are obviously keeping this secret and studying this stuff by themselves. And here's the other thing. These debunkers, they act like they know everything that Congress knows. How do they know? How do they know what Congress has learned in some of these skiffs, these top secret meeting places? How do they know anything about that? They don't know what they've been told. Congress people like Chuck Schumer and Tim Burchett and all these people, bipartisan group of people, wouldn't be pushing for legislation like that unless they were pretty sure about it. They don't want to look like, they don't want to have egg on their face later on. They've seen enough right now to this point that they know something's going on and this cover up needs to end. That's how some of them feel about this. I'm certain of it. But these people act like Congress is just duped by other people outside. Not just like some of the voices that are outside, like the late Harry Reid. They think that they get some of these people in Congress got duped by certain people who are interested in UFOs, and that's it. Well, no, they saw something. They've been meeting with some whistleblowers who provided some kind of information to them that has convinced them otherwise. These guys have no idea what that information entails because it's top secret. How do they know what they saw or didn't see? They don't know. Anyway, continuing here, their intense campaign of sensation-seeking media, along with the credulousness of congresspersons, will end with the acknowledgement of the UFO crash cover-up narrative as a fantasy that had shamelessly been pushed and encouraged by the individuals who pressed for a misguided defense law that was in turn promoted by non-verifying newspapers and online venues. This is one of my favorite lines in this whole thing. They write, the net result, wait and see, will ultimately be a thorough debunking of such silly stories, leading to the discrediting of persons and communication outlets who participated in the farce. Wow. So they really believe that this is going to be a thorough debunking is going to come here at some point. It's going to show us that all of the stuff that we've been talking about, all the research by people like Leonard Stringfield, all these crash retrievals, all these Michael Schratt, all the stuff that he's been talking about, all the stuff that Richard Dolan's been talking about, all the stuff that Stan Friedman had talked about, all the stuff with relation to crash retrievals, all these people in Roswell, all of them somehow at some point in the future, according to these people, it's going to be proved that there's nothing to it, that it was all a farce, according to these guys. I like to know where they're getting. They're just conjuring these ideas. This is wishful thinking on their behalf, because they know in the end, when the truth does drop, they're the ones who are going to be looking like idiots, right? That's who the people, academics later on in years to come are going to be looking back and they're going to be saying, "Look at these idiots." That's what they're going to be saying. That people in the future. That's what they will say. Okay, we'll skip forward here a little bit. It says here, the corpus of the so-called UFO phenomenon is composed of events or stories about events that have probably been happening since time immemorial. The modern period of flying saucers and UFOs is everywhere recognized as starting in 1947. Since then, many national governments have received and collected reports and have studied them to various degrees, mostly concluding that nothing extraordinary or threatening exists. As far as the USA is concerned, the United States Air Force's Blue Book archives contained more intriguing reports, but investigation methodology was improvable, as the Air Force's priority was seeking foreign aircraft and other down-to-earth causes during its contest with the Soviet Union, introducing an attendant bias. In its final estimation in 1969, Blue Book determined that out of 13,134 recorded cases, 5% were of unknown provenance, a relative infrequency that nevertheless represents the ballpark arrived at by most subsequent studies. And later on he says here, in our judgment, the research and know-how accumulated in the first 50 years of contemporary UFO phenomenon does not prove the reality that they're talking about from 1947 to 2000, does not prove the reality of an anomalous phenomenon, but rather to a mass of observation, reporting, and investigation errors. So everything, it's just people making mistakes, or it's just so many different reports and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with some non-human intelligence whatsoever to these guys. To avoid ahistorical and context-lacking pitfalls, we recommend that current analysts develop and embrace an all-encompassing historical, sociological, and documentative outlook when looking at UAP reports. Speaking of that, I think it's time that we focus on, it's time for us to start studying the debunkers' response to the proof. As more and more of these idiots find out about it, I want to see how they respond, what they say, how they lie about it, when they do, or what they don't do. Like Mick West's, Ixnay on the Aegis Bay, for him. Don't go there. Whatever you do, you'll make a fool out of yourself. Don't try it. Don't do it. And none of those other morons that are in your group, they should stay away from it, because when that happens, right? I want you to, though. I want them to. Please try to dispute it. Please. I'm begging you. Please. Anyway, we're going to skip forward to this junk. You could check out the whole thing for yourself, when you get a chance. But here's some of the other things that I thought was interesting. They write later on, obviously UAP ufology will experience a considerable renaissance thanks to all these factors. Fed up by the media, credulous TV channels, and the publishing industry. That is until they have a list here of when all of this is going to go away. When all of this, hysteria over UAP will go away. And they have it listed here. 1, the subsequent exhaustion and saturation of the theme, coupled with 2, the expected findings of future Arrow reports and probably those of other scientific institutions like NASA, as well as the analyses of skeptics like Mick West, showing that UAP, understood as mysterious aerial phenomena, are no problem for aviation safety, that the United States never acquired flying saucers or their crews, that documented UAP events are best explained as mundane objects or phenomena, and above all, that extraterrestrial life is not a valid term in this equation. So they are just outright dismissing all of that stuff, and they think that as time goes on, people are going to listen to the analyses of people like Mick West with stuff like the one where he promoted the magical puppeteer troupe, stuff like that, the coyotes and raccoons that he tried to tag on to the Vegas stuff. They're going to be turning to people like him, and they're going to everyone's going to feel satisfied at some point in the future with Mick West and his ilk. The analyses of people like that. That's what they're saying here. Think about how ridiculous that is. That's never going to happen. These guys talk about this stuff being a fantasy for people like us. They're living in a fantasy. This is pure absolute fiction. This is pure fantasy. And this is another great part here. It says here, in our considered opinion, flying saucers are unreal. Well, let's just stop there. Now, people have been seeing flying saucers since at least 1947. Right? At least, right? In fact, we just talked about a story that happened on June 5th where 12 people saw flying saucer, a large one, and it acted as other flying saucers have been reported to act. It turned on its side and then took off with its belly first, right? And then disappeared, like some other cases we were talking about. This stuff has been going on for a long time, but according to these people, they're unreal. It's not real, according to these two guys. That's what they're saying. UFOs are not extraordinary anomalies. Woo! How do they know? How do they know? Where's their evidence? They don't produce any evidence. These are just armchair. They're just throwing out statements here. This is pontification with nothing to back up anything that they're saying. Nothing at all. The most well-documented UAP reports will be solved when the best tools that technology can provide are employed in the analysis, if tested by down-to-earth professionals who are truly unwedded to cosmic or paranormal beliefs. So, that's the other thing. Only skeptics. They only want skeptics to study this, not other people. Not people who might have open minds, right? No, not open-minded people. Skeptics. Mick West, he'll come up with an excuse for you. It has been suggested that investigators of events that involve UAP and or paranormal experiences should preferably be skeptical-minded individuals for a number of practical reasons. This will not dissipate the social myth, as too many media outlets regularly profit from the collective imagination surrounding UAP, and too many people have sunken their costs and identities into the proliferation of paranormal, anomalous, ET-themed narratives. But at least academia, the educated layperson, the aerospace industry, the political class, governments, and military and intelligence personnel will know the true situation and will be able to differentiate fact from fiction without further wild goose chases that waste money on air phantasms. Well, again, these morons have not been made aware yet of the evidence that has raised its ugly head literally over a fence. Right? These morons do not know that, right? These people are fools and they're liars, and they don't have anything to back up what they're stating at all. This is opinion. That's what this is. It's not nothing to take home to the bank, because they don't offer anything. They don't offer anything to back up what they're saying. Nothing, right? Nothing, right? So it's all made up nonsense, and don't listen to these kind of people. And now, continuing here, it says, now the United States Department of Defense is seriously committed to evaluating this mystery. To us, Arrow stands as a properly equipped and budgeted resource for a job that will probably be the last time in history that the United States government champions the study of UAPs as these are currently defined. See, these guys that's another problem. These skeptics, they actually lack imagination. You got to have some imagination to survive in this world. These people have none. No imagination whatsoever. They don't understand that this is real. They never did their research, or either that, like I said, I don't know. Either they're really stupid and naive, or they're deliberately lying. There's no other answer here. It has to be one or the other, right? Because if you do the research, you will know that there's a presence here. You don't have to see one of these things for yourself, right? And besides that, we have the evidence now anyway. Where's the? I'm still asking. Where's the debunkers at? Come on. Tell us why it's not real. Tell us why we're wrong about the Vegas aliens. I want to hear it. Come on, I'm dying to hear it. You don't understand how much I really want to hear this. Because you don't have, even the Pentagon, they're not even responding. They won't respond. They can't. What are they going to say? But I would love these two. I would love one of these guys or both of them. Oh my God, please. Give me an explanation. Give me something. It'd be so cool, wouldn't it? Anyway, as of today, they're talking about Arrow. They love Arrow. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Everything that Arrow had in its historical records report. Oh, they bought all of that hook, line, and sinker. All of it. All of it. And anybody who studied this knows it was a joke. I mean, listen, what Richard Dolan, a historian, what did he tell you? It's a joke. It's a joke. As of today, our Arrow is ostensibly free from constraint by ideology in one sense or another. Let us see what the future brings. The present UAP program carried out by the DoD is in the best position to clarify this issue once and for all. Yeah, okay, yes, okay, yeah, I believe that. No, I don't. UFO/UAP sightings have nothing to do with extraterrestrial visits. Woo! How do they know that? How do they know? Where's your proof? I want to see your proof of this. Then they say that is a chimera. They call it a chimera. Okay, let's read that one again. These guys figured it out, and they're saying UFO, UAP sightings have nothing to do with extraterrestrial visits. That is a chimera. Where's their proof? I want to see it. I don't see it in this paper. There's no proof in this paper whatsoever. None. Offered no proof. In fact, I have proof that shows otherwise. I've got proof that says otherwise. I have proof that there is something here, right? And they're probably extraterrestrial. I don't know where they're coming from, right? But I think that they're extraterrestrial. Prove me wrong. Come on, prove me wrong. Please try it. Please try it. Unexplained aerial events are due to multiple causes, some plain and ordinary, others rare, but all unexceptional and naturalistic. So everything that has happened over the years, there's an explanation for it. It's all natural. Don't worry about it. I.e. not aliens or the supernatural, like failed observations, misrepresented testimony, man-made airborne objects, including foreign intelligence collecting vehicles, drones, and balloons, optical effects, other ill-understood atmospheric and geophysics effects, erroneous sensor data, and so forth. So there's an explanation for everything according to these guys, even though they offer no proof. They offer no proof, right? None. Zero. I've seen one of these creatures. I know these guys are wrong. We have a royal flush. The royal flush has already been shown to them because we have the evidence now to back it up. And these guys are just making fools out of themselves. Obviously, they're unaware of the Vegas evidence, or maybe would have thought twice about putting this out there if they knew about it. Or maybe they're going to try to debunk it. Maybe they're going to try to. Yes, that would be great, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be great to see these bozos go up against Scott Roeder, who has over 30 years in video analysis? Wouldn't it be something to see that? He's an expert. Wouldn't it be great to see that? Wouldn't it be great to see these guys try to debunk what Scott Roeder has put forward? Wouldn't it be great? Mick West, any of these goofballs who are making statements like this. Any of them. Anyway, you can see... Another one he's a big fan of in this paper is Douglas Dean Johnson, even though I do like some of the research by Douglas Dean Johnson, but for the most part he leans as too much of a skeptic for my tastes. But I have to admit that he did do a good job at exposing the Trinity UFO case. See, that's the other misguided misinformation that they put out here. They think that everyone in the UFO community believes everything that's thrown out there. No, a lot of us are skeptical. I'm skeptical. Right? I'm skeptical of stories when I hear them. I got to investigate and find out if it could possibly be real or if it's not real. You have to do that. I think everyone who's serious in the UFO field is skeptical. You have to be skeptical. Like, for instance, the Trinity UFO case. I think that was a hoax. That's what it was, based on the research by Douglas Dean Johnson. This, whatever you want to call this, does nothing. This paper does nothing. It's just a bunch of pontifications from people who really didn't study this or something, or they have the blinders on for half of it. I mean, they look at everything that Stephen Greenstreet and Mick West has to say, but they don't look at the other research. They just pretend it doesn't exist. See, that was the cool thing. When I talk about Roswell, I actually pull out the Air Force's report and show you why some of the things that they state in there is incorrect. Why it has to be incorrect, and why their assertions are off base. But these guys here, they've drunk the bathwater. Either that, or they're just they're lying on purpose. I don't know, one or the other. That's up to them to tell us the truth. Either they're lying on purpose, or they're really naive and stupid. That's it. I don't know what else to say. But they put a lot of work into this paper. And why? For who? For what? I mean, what's the point of this? I mean, to just to get some brownie points in the skeptic community or something? I mean, what does this do? I mean, do you think anyone's going to believe this nonsense? This is nonsense. This is horse dump. I mean, they don't really offer anything. There's nothing here new. It's all stolen from other people, for one thing. That's another thing. I mean, they've basically taken Stephen Greenstreet's research and just reworded it. It's all just refabricated. Same old nonsense we heard before. Right? Doesn't make any sense. And then they conclude by, there's no proof. It's not extraterrestrial. We know this for a fact. Okay, where's your proof? Where's your proof? Where's your proof? You don't have it. In fact, it's the opposite. We have the proof, man. We have the proof. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.